Hey, what's up YouTube? Sorry for the background noise. They're doing some work on our street here. We're doing a wheel bearing here. Wheel hub assembly on a 2000 Pontiac Grand Prix here, GT. 3.8 Series 2. Obviously we've jacked it up, supported it with a jack stand, and we've taken the wheel off. So we're going to go ahead and start filming from this point. Figured if you're doing this, you pretty much should know how to take off the wheel, otherwise you shouldn't be doing this. Going to need a 13, a 15, and a 19. Millimeter, 13, 15, 19 millimeter impact socket, or if you have a tire iron, that's for taking off the lug nuts, and 15 takes off the bolts that hold the caliper bracket on to the actual steering knuckle, and 13 is the size of the bolts that hold in the actual wheel bearing hub assembly to the replacement unit, or to the actual steering knuckle. Little FYI, when you're doing wheel bearings, I highly recommend going with Napa. Napa wheel bearings, I've never had to replace one or replace one a second time after I've replaced it once. So highly recommend replacing with a Napa wheel bearing. They have a kind of like an economy one, and they also have a more expensive one that has a longer warranty. I think the more expensive one usually comes with typically like a 36-month warranty or 45,000 miles, whichever comes first, and then the other one is a 1-year warranty, the economy one. For this particular car, the part number was, let's see here, PBR930548K is the part number for this particular bearing from Napa. So we're going to just start off with, now I have some air tools here, which makes life so much easier when you're doing this job. Actually, I still got to go get half my tools. I'll be right back, guys. Now, I don't know for sure if this one's actually bad. I'm only changing it because it's usually recommended to replace both of them. It almost seems like, unless you hit something or know you did something crazy to cause them to go bad, usually on GMs these go bad very commonly. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's a weight distribution issue. When I make foreign cars, a lot of times, like on Jaguars and stuff, the front of the car and the front of the car are both equally weighed. Even though the engine is heavier, they balance the cars. On GMs, they pretty much crush the front ends with the engine, and the rear ends are pretty much so light that the rear wheel bearings almost never go bad. I've only had to replace one since I've been working on cars. I'm 29, I've been working on cars since I was 13. I'm not a professional mechanic, but I sure as heck have done a lot of stuff. So this is the one I replaced on the other side. I'm hoping you can see that. This is the bad wheel bearing. I don't know if you can hear that, probably not, but that's basically the inside bearings are shot. This one I know for sure is bad. This one I'm only replacing because I'm pretty confident it's bad too. So first things first, I'm just going to go ahead and tear these bolts off of here for these. So this just makes life easier if you have an impact wrench. What setting do I have this on? Yeah, it's on reverse. I just don't think these... No. I may be breaking these loose with the breaker bar here. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm talking up these things and how great they are, yet here I am, not to be able to get them off. Yeah, I prefer my electric impact gun. Believe it or not, my air one's actually 350 foot-pounds. The electric one only has 250, but it seems to be more consistent, the electric one, and more upfront power. So there, yeah, sometimes you just got to break them loose with the breaker like I just did. And then you can cheat and use the impact. That'll save you a lot of extra work. There we go. Sometimes just using a breaker bar will make life so much easier. What do they say? Divine inspiration. Give you a lever big enough you can move the world. Well, that's exactly what this is. You just got to get a big enough lever to knock these loose. So now we can do the rest of the arm work with the impact. Basically, what I'm doing here, and I'll show you in just a second as I get the other one out, is taking out these bolts right there. That bolt and the bolt down there where you see that empty hole, that's the bolts that hold the caliper bracket. This is the caliper bracket right here. So here's the caliper right here. This is the caliper bracket. This is the part that mounts the actual caliper to the steering knuckle, which this is the steering knuckle right here that goes up into the actual strut, and it's held on by these two bolts here and these backup nuts that holds the actual knuckle to the strut. And then the bottom of the steering knuckle connects down here, which I don't know if I'm angling this right because I can't see what you're seeing, but oh, there we go, right there in the center there with that little rubber bushing you see, that's the ball joint. This is the lower control arm. Most front wheel drive cars only have a lower control arm because they use a strut, and up in here they have what they call strut bearing, a plate which has spins. This allows the actual wheel to spin. It'll spin like this when you turn your wheel. That lets you turn your wheel. So try to line you back up here, guys. Here, give me a minute here to see what you're seeing. Make sure you can see what's going on here. Gotta tilt you in just a little bit there. That should do it. Gives you the idea. Alright, so let's take that top nut out. So much easier. Try to keep these separate. I mean, pretty much you can figure out where they go, but I try to keep them in the correct location so I know where they go, because sometimes they do make them a little bit different sizes. So basically what I'm doing, I'm just tapping. Little FYI, sometimes it's a good idea to put a backup nut. Unplug this hose. I got to get a new quick connect on that hose. It's causing it to leak on the air hose, so the compressor keeps running. Basically what I'm doing right now is I'm just putting a lug nut on this backwards on this rotor just to keep it from moving while I try to pound this off. There we go. Now we can just kind of support this somewhere here up out of the way. I usually recommend not letting it dangle from the hose. We'll let that there for a minute. I'm going to try to get a spongy cord to tie that up. I'll be right back, guys. So we're going to improvise because I can't seem to find anywhere. There we go. Move out of the way. Just got to put something for it to support it, that's all. Using a bucket upside down. Works well. I can't find my bungee cord, so. Alright, now we can take this rotor back off here. Get this out of the way. Try not to scratch this up if possible. So, it's easier to loosen this outside nut first. This is the axle nut right here. This here I think is a 36. Give me a minute to find it. This is a 36, yeah. It's a 36 inch. Might actually be smaller. I haven't stripped anything off with this yet, so it's the one I end up just using. But reason why I take the axle nut off first is because you kind of have to push the CV joint axle in a little bit at times, so that you can get into these bolts with a socket, because this axle here is so flush up against the actual steering knuckle where the metal part is of the axle, where it connects to the boot here. So a lot of times if you don't push the axle back and in a little bit using the sponginess of the boot, because it is flexible, you can't get to the actual bolts on here to take these out. So go ahead and crack this loose. Make sure we're unloosing here. See, the electric one would have tore that right off without any problem, but you know, what can you do? Usually you don't want to beat on the end of the shaft here. I know you guys probably can't see, but the shaft that comes out, there's threads on it. You don't want to beat on it with anything heavy duty. Looks like that one's going to work freely. I can tell it's loose in there. The reason why you don't want to is because you'll mushroom the head out of these, which basically means that you'll mess up the threads and you'll never get a nut back on it. If you do that, then you have to replace your whole axle, and then you're just looking at one extra expense. So it looks like it is moving freely, so that's good. So we should be able to get in there with the thing. So the next size we're going to need, that was a 36. We're going to need a 13 now here, as soon as I figure out what I did with it. Probably sitting on it, which is usually the case. Yes, I am. What did I do with it? Are you kidding me? That's how I spent half my day doing is looking for tools. What happened, it serves me right for working in the gravel here. Move my water under there. Sure, it's here, it's just I gotta find it. Let's take a look here. Where are we at? Spent half this day looking for tools. Well, we'll try using this one. This is an impact socket. This one, outer one here, is usually pretty easy to hit, so we're gonna go ahead and hit that with this real quick. If I can get in there with all this other crap in the way. There we go. Ouch. Alright, so there's one of the bolts that hold in anything. We're going to set these on the other side of my jack. Now, these other ones are a little tricky because you got all this, like I said, you got the boot and everything in the way here. So I'm going to see if I can get, might have to, yeah, I'm going to have to find my extension in my 13 regular socket wherever it may have gone. Now it's got to be around here somewhere. Unhook this hose. I know, guys, I'm so disorganized, so I apologize. What wanted to be a how-to project has turned into a how the hell do I lose all my tools project. Alright, where's my 13? Just had it out here. Oh boy. Can't believe it. I literally brought these tools from there to here. I don't know what I did with it. You gotta be kidding me. 15. Well, I found a 13mm socket. It's not the one I was using, which isn't really a big deal, but that's odd that I have no idea what I did with it. It's gonna drive me crazy today. It's probably laying in the gravel here somewhere, so I'm trying to determine if I can do this. Let's try to get this breaker bar on here. Once again, I'm just getting on this back nut here. You gotta push this axle in so you can get seated flushly on it. I think you just gotta, there we go. I like when things go smoothly like that. And this is my other favorite tool. This here is a pneumatic air ratchet. I can get it in there. Should be able to. A little loud, guys. God, that makes life easier. I love tools, guys. I love tools. All right. So now we're going to turn the wheel all the way out. We're going to start it up and turn the wheel out here. Basically, by doing this, this is granting access to this other nut that's back in here, which, let's see if we can get you in there. So, see if you can even see that. I don't even know. Let's see there. Yeah, that nut right there. That's the other nut. So there's three. This is the back of the hub. There's 1, 2, 3 to hold it into the steering wheel. Let me get you repositioned here. See what you can see. Oh, let's turn you in a little bit. There you go. Now we're going to try to nail this one, which unfortunately, I normally crack it loose with this first. I have to say this one's a little bit easier to work with than the other side. Plus the breaker bars. Yeah, you pretty much not having a breaker bar, guys, that'll become your favorite tool when you're doing any car repair. It's still not loose enough here. Give me a minute. Crack this loose a couple more turns here. Some guys will actually disconnect the strut from the steering knuckle and disconnect the what am I trying to say here? They'll also disconnect the tie rod end so that they can move all this around and pivot it and get better access to it. You can do that if you're comfortable taking all that off. I just think it's more work. If you don't mind the idea of squeezing around a couple of these things on here that you need to squeeze around, you know, working around these components like I'm doing now, you know, by pushing the CV joint in and so on. If you don't mind that, boy, that one's tight. If you don't mind that, then you'll be fine. I don't know if this is still going to be, the only thing about this one, it's not, yeah, this one's not real strong. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get in there with the impact gun. Let me take a look here. But anyhow, if you, like I was saying, if you don't mind the idea of having to take, not taking stuff, or working around stuff, I should say, if you don't mind moving stuff around and sliding components around to make things work for you, I would suggest just leaving as much on as you can. I personally just think it's more work to try to, so. There we go. I gotta get a new quick connect on that. You guys still recording? Yep. Okay, good. I know the other day I was recording, did all this work, and looked down and my battery had gone dead. I'm like, oh, that's nice. So basically I recorded nothing. Alright, so now we've actually knocked the wheel bearing loose. So, a couple different ways we can do this. First, there's a plug back here, which I'll show you in a minute, which is for the ABS. Basically what this plug does is it hooks up to the ABS computer to monitor the spinning of the wheels. Just gotta grab a flathead. I'll be right back, guys. Yeah, so basically this thing has a sensor inside this bearing. That's when they go bad, unfortunately you got to replace the entire wheel bearing, even if your wheel bearing is quote-unquote not bad. Sometimes just the sensor goes and you'll get an ABS light. And if you get an ABS light, then the only way you can fix it is by changing the entire hub assembly, because they all come as one piece on these. So if you're getting an ABS light for a particular wheel, usually you have to replace that entire sensor. So everything's just disgustingly dirty under there. brake line almost looks like it's leaking. I'll have to take a look at that in a minute. But what I'm going to do is, like I said, this is just the way I do it. It works for me. I'm just going to use a miniature sledge here, just a little mini one. I'm just going to pound this off. Usually, if you hit it from a couple different angles, it'll, try not to hit yourself like I just did, it'll come right off, like so. And then you can just, there you go. And as you can see, that wire completely ripped out of here. It, actually the sensor's still stuck in there. I've actually had this happen before where the whole sensor actually pops off. This bearing is bad too. It's spinning real freely, and you can, I don't know if that's picking it up or you can hear it, but the whole sensor came off in here, which, if it happens, don't get alarmed, it happens, you know, it's just the sensor, which this actually might give us a little bit of a learning experience. You get to see what this sensor looks like a little bit. But this is pressed onto the back of the bearing. Like I said, they don't sell this part separately, so that's the piece of O-ring, like a seal. Actually, it looks like a magnetic ring. And then you should be able to get in here and pry this inner side out. This looks like some kind of seal too. Some kind of glue or something around it. Yeah, it completely ripped the... But anyway, it's a magnet is basically all this sensor is, and it enables it to monitor the speed of the wheels and how they're spinning. So kind of glad this happened on this side, because this way I can at least show you some of the obstacles that, you know, that's the problem working on cars, is it never goes smoothly. There's always some kind of piss fit that you run into here. Always run into something. It never, this here you want to keep this bracket. This bracket mounts behind the hub, between the knuckle and the hub, and what this bracket does is it has a little clip on the end there. That clip on the end is where the actual ABS wire clips onto to keep it from dangling in the wheel. Now, this isn't working out real well. I might have to get something bigger to knock this out of here. I almost punctured the stupid whatchamacallit, actually this may not have happened. I think this was probably partially my fault that this happened. I mean, I've had this happen before, but a lot of times if you have the wheel turned when you're doing this, the spring will pop off the bearing when you try to separate it. So there we go. There's still that wire harness in there. There. So yeah, this is the sensor. All it is a magnet in here with two leads, and it sends a pulse back to the actual body control module computer, and it monitors how fast this wheel's spinning. So you ever hear the term the wheel that slips to the wheel that grips? Basically the ABS helps kick in the traction control, and it tells the car this wheel's spinning, let off the power on this and spin the other wheel. It works in conjunction with the transmission. The other thing it does is it helps with the ABS. So if this wheel's slipping when you're stepping on a brake, it will actually stop that, it'll let off the pressure on this caliper, so there's not as much braking on this wheel, because this wheel's slipping, for example, so it'll make the other wheel stop. That's where you get the pulsation in the brake whenever you're, there's an ant crawling up my leg, whenever you're stepping on a brake on ice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just straighten this wheel back out. It's just easier to start the car than it is to sit here and crank this thing. So go ahead and just straighten the wheel out. Once I straighten the wheel out, then I'm going to clean this up, because you want to get all this crap out of here. Oxidation between the two different types of metals that form here, they create rust and oxidation. So because they don't chemically, they have a chemical imbalance. Straighten that out. Now we're going to grab some sandpaper. Hey, I found my 13mm socket I was looking for earlier. It's laying in the stones. This teaches me for working in the stones. Anyway, so I got some Scotch Brite because I do some body work too. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to clean all this crud out of here with it, and then I'm going to take some sandpaper over. I'm just getting the big stuff off first. I have to replace this Scotch-Brite when I do body work now on. Now you don't have to do what I'm doing. Some mechanics, they don't care. That's not their car, so they just slap it back together. I personally, I prefer to do this. You know, I like to get in here and do it right and do it to the best of my knowledge of what's accurate and clean everything up. This makes it easier, not only if you ever sell the car or if you ever need to do this job again. It makes it easier for working on it in the future. If you have all this cleaned up now, the next time you hop under here, these wheel bearings go bad again, which they will, it's a GM, you can make this a lot easier. And what you do is you clean all this crap out of here. It's rust and oxidation, and there's some melted plastic from the outer ring of the ABS sensor in here too, which is typical. Take some sandpaper, it don't matter, you know, what grit it is. This one's not as strong of a grit as I wish it was. I'm just cleaning out this entrance, this steering knuckle here. This is where the wheel bearing slides in. The cleaner you get this, the less chances you have of this thing giving you trouble getting this out next time. In fact, if you get it good enough, you might get lucky. You may even be able to get the wheel bearing off here without even hitting it with a hammer. Once you take out the bolt, it might just drop out. So, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, just get the big stuff out of here. I'm kind of an overachiever, perfectionist, so I spend a couple extra minutes than most people would. All you're doing is preventative maintenance by doing this kind of stuff. Maybe take it on the outside of this knuckle. This is where it meets up to the knuckle, the actual bearing. Get rid of any rust or oxidation in here. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just makes everything seat nice. And other things people have done with this too is you could, if you have a wire brush on the end of your drill, you could technically do that. Just take the wire brush this and clean this up real nice. Unfortunately, I just threw mine in the garbage because it was shot. There we go. That's good enough. I'm going to take it with this a little bit one more time. Try to loosen up some of this big stuff. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Just got to get it cleaned up. It's just preventative maintenance, like I said. Now, somewhere around here I did have a rag, but not too sure. Oh, there it is. I found it. Give me a minute here. I go through more shop towels than you can imagine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this shop rag, just clean up the extra debris that I sanded off here. It's still kind of dirty in here, but like I said, as long as it's decent enough, not rusty, just preventative maintenance. I mean, you really don't even have to do this technically. It just makes it so, like I said, the next time you do this, it's just some penetrating oil. Just go around the ring a little bit, and it helps the bearings slip in. Alright, so this point sort of looks like something like this. You know, clean. As you can see, there's still some down in that ring there, debris, but it's all pretty much cleaned up enough that I'm not worried about it. Alright, let's get you repositioned here so you can see what you're doing. And we're going to tilt you in a little bit. That should be good. Okay. Now we're going to get the new bearing out of the box. Oh, jeez, these things are heavy with I'm left-handed. Alright, here's the sensor. So, as you can see, this one here, no noise and should feel almost like jelly almost. So that one feels pretty good. Okay, so here's that metal ring that I was telling you about earlier. Clean it up a little bit. Like I said, I kind of miss my wire wheel. I use the hell out of that thing for this kind of stuff. Just cleaning stuff up, basically. It's, you know, things in rust and... Alright, that should be good enough for that. Now what I'm going to do is anti-seize. This little tube of anti-seize here. This stuff here, you can get it anywhere. It's not that expensive. It's your best friend when it comes to car repair, especially when it comes to rust and stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting some on my finger. I'm just going to finger it. I know you know what you guys are thinking. That's what she said. But yeah, we're just going to put some in here. It doesn't have to be a lot, just enough to give it a nice coating so that next time, if I ever have to change this bearing again, it will come right out. Now you can also wipe some on the outside here. That's what I normally do. What this will do is it enables you to get this plate back off, keeps the plate from sticking, and it's a rust inhibitor too. It'll really help prevent getting rust on here. Not 100% true. Like I said, most people don't do this, but I do things the way that I know it works, and just from experience of having things do. Now you can put some on the axle shaft. That's really a preference. That kind of helps the process of sliding the new bearing into place. So stuff smells like natural gas. That chemical they put in natural gas, you can smell if it's leaking. Alright, so let me get cleaned up here. Now the wire that's on here, it's on the back of the sensor. This is the ABS connector that plugs into the computer. That should be towards the bottom when you position this, or closest to the bottom as possible. So what you want to do is first get this thing and run it through there like that, and then it's kind of a pain in the ass, but what you gotta, come on now, kind of got it. What you gotta do here, yeah, we're gonna try this again. Kind of what you have to do here is push that wire through there like so. Push that bearing in there. At the same time you're pushing that in there, you gotta kind of feed that wire into place too. There you go. Once you get that wire in there, then you can just do whatever you need to do to get this in there. Alright, so let's try to get that position there. Alright. Yeah. So now, don't worry about that ring until you're actually ready to. So you gotta kind of wiggle up and down, like so. Now, if you don't get it lined up with the bolt holes, honestly, guys, it's not a big deal, and I'll tell you why. Because the actual back part of the bearing spins, because it's the part that actually mounts to the vehicle. So, just getting this lined up is kind of a bitch sometimes. I apologize here. Sometimes this can be a little pesky. Sometimes you just got to give it a little persuasion there. Just kind of beat it a little bit, and that'll help work everything into place. Alright, so let's line this up to where it needs to be. Which I think is going to be sort of like right there. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, because all we got to do now is draw these bolts in from the back side. He's still recording? Alright, good. Put a little anti-seize on him. Once again, preventative maintenance. Just a preference, not a must. You can do this however you guys want to do it. I'm just giving you guidance here. Lining these up sometimes can be a little pain in the neck at times. Sometimes you got to pull the bearing hub assembly back out of placement to get these to line up. Alright. Where'd that 13 go? Jeez, this 13 is just running away from me today. It does not want to be used. Are you kidding me? I'm seriously missing that 13 again. Wow. Bad example here, guys, so I apologize. I don't know where that 13 went. I'm sure I'll find it here in a minute, but just try to get this started anyway. Nope, I need that 13. There's that 15. Where did the 13 go again? Oh, jeez. Oh, here it is. I laid it on the box. Oh, boy. This is embarrassing. Tell you what, if my head wasn't connected, I would have lost it a long time ago. So basically, I'm just starting this one bolt. This isn't going quite as smooth as the other side went. But like I said, the reason why I'm doing it this way is I'm hoping to kind of give you guys an idea how things don't go perfectly. I'm kind of glad I ran into these kind of issues so you can see that what can potentially happen. Alright, so now that one's started, you can go ahead and start another bolt. Like I said, you may have to turn the steering wheel in and out and whatnot to get this axle and stuff out of your way. So we may have to start it up. And like I said, that's pretty typical. I'm going to try to put this one in now. These go in way easier when you have the wheel turned the other way. So that one's actually kind of doing what it should be doing. That's good. Okay. One more. It's just 3 of these. Still recording? Yep. Okay. I'm just watching because that battery seems to drain quick. The camera's actually not that old. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's a crappy one. To be completely frank with you here. Let's push this back through so I can get that bolt in there. Come on. Who the heck's the hole? There she goes. There we go. Line it up. Perfect. Okay, so now all your tools on Tighten, which I think this is. Yep. Try to get it up in here. I might have to use a longer extension. So make sure that's in line there. Get a couple spins on it by hand. Yeah, it should be good. Alright, so everything's lined up. Wiring harness, everything seems pretty good. So should do it. Now what we need to do, hook up an air hose and find it to the ratchet, air ratchet, and we're going to go ahead and just crank this in. Now this is not a final tighten, obviously. This is just to get it started so that you can do the rest with the correct torque. Now there are torques involved in this. Like I said, there are special torques involved. Personally, I do everything by common sense when I do these. I don't like the way that axle's in there. Just give it a little... Yeah, it's in there right. Try to get into that top one. It's always a fun time. I might need an extra extension on here, which I probably lost that too. Actually, I better just use this long extension I have. Alright. Once again, all I'm doing is tightening these bolts up here. Try to narrate a little better for you. That always felt good. Gotta watch these tools because they'll smash your fingers real quickly. Just like that did. Alright, so it's snug down. It's basically where it needs to be. The axles, get a little tap. I'm just making sure them teeth are good. And the teeth are good because it's turning. As you can see, it's turning the actual bearing. So as far as pulling that in, this will pull back in for the most part with the actual nut. So what we got to do is snug these down. What I do is I snug these down like I said, you basically just snug them down to what you think it should be. You know, you can use the special torque, and I'm sure everybody's gonna give me hell for this, but yeah, there is a torque you can use on these. But I just get them tight to the point where I know they're going to be safe and they're not over tight. They're not also not over tight, and I know they're also not going to crack the bearing either, because you over tighten and crack the bearing. short extension for this back one. For some reason, this side's going a little smoother with this. I'm not complaining, but a little confused why. Alright, let me stand up here for a minute, guys. Oh, I'm getting old. Turn the wheel out again. Access to this back bolt that's over here. Like I said, a lot of guys take these tie rods off because this is just a bitch to get to this one. That should do it. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Actually, we're gonna do, oops, sorry. We're gonna go back on that top one more time just to make sure, because the whole weight of the vehicle sits on this. So, okay, I'm comfortable with that. All right, straighten the wheel back out. Wheel straight. Now, basically we're going to drive this axle back on here, which looks like it's in place. Give it a little squirty-roo. My 36, I know it looks pretty rigged up, and I apologize for that. It's a long story. It's called not using the right tool. I basically was banging on the top of the socket to reseat something I needed to seat. I was using a socket as a tool to hit, so I wasn't hitting the actual part, and I screwed up the whole top of it, so I had to shove these pieces in there to be able to still use it. So just got to replace it. It's just taking a long time to spin down on that. Let that build up some pressure for a minute. I'll hit it one more time just to make sure, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Like I said, it'll just pull this axle right back into there again. So, assuming you guys can still see, I don't know if I knocked out of whack or what I did there. So, kind of let it sit for a minute. That's tight, so go ahead and just hit it again. Once again, this should be torqued too, but like I said, that ain't going nowhere, so I'm happy with that. Alright. Slow process of putting the unneeded tools out of the way here. So next thing we're going to do is plug your wire connector in for this, which I can't really show you here, but I'm going to show you what I'm doing down here. Alright, so these are the wire connectors here. So we're going to plug this one here into that there, into there, and then this, what am I doing here? I can't see, guys. This clip that's sticking out here, this is that bar that we put back on behind the bearing, that plate. We're going to slide it onto there. So, get you into the rocks there. This doesn't fall. This is a good camera. Oh, look at that. So we're going to just basically, like so, should go that easy. And then I'm going to go ahead and slide that on, and that should be it. Now what you want to do is you always want to check your work and make sure that none of these wire harnesses are going to get caught in the drive shaft, because that, my friends, would not be a good day, because then you'll ruin your ABS and have to replace the bearing again. So that should be good. That's not going anywhere. So as you can see it down in there, that's what it looks like. It's the axle. See, I got that on. Got that bolt, and there's a bolt right there, and a bolt right there. You can see the head of it sticking out right there, and that goes in from behind, from the steering knuckle, and that's what bolts it in place. Alright, so let's get you seated back up on here again, see what you're looking at. Alright, now what we're going to do is just put the caliper back on. First you need the rotor, because there's a bracket that gets in the way there that actually goes around the rotor. So, and get the rotor on there, and spin a lug nut on backwards to hold it down. Some models you can't do this, but this one I got lucky. That just keeps this from moving around when you're trying to position the caliper in place. Always make sure your pads didn't slip out of placement, which these ones did, so I'll just push them back in. These pads are good, so we're not changing them. Here's the two bolts again. Here's the two bolts for the hold the caliper bracket on. Like I said, no reason to take the whole caliper apart because we're not doing brakes. Just make sure the hose is not twisted up or anything. And go ahead and slide this one back on. Use the rubber mallet here if I can locate it. Give it a little persuasion. So, didn't quite go as smooth as the other side did, I will say that much. But it definitely wasn't bad. Nothing really went wrong here. Just ran into a couple little snags as far as, like I said, that sensor breaking apart on the back of that hub assembly. So that was bound to throw code eventually. I can usually tell when that happens, it's bound to throw code on the computer eventually. These bolts, they just go in the back of the bracket. I don't really need to show you guys, it's pretty much common sense here. I think I developed tennis elbow. I've been having some issues with some pains. I've managed to develop in my forearm and going all the way up into my shoulder. So, feeling I developed what they call tennis elbow. It's really when it surprised me. I get a lot of car repairs and body work and stuff like that, so as you can see, I don't even have the strength hardly to push this air hose on there. That's how bad my elbow hurts today. Alright, let's get back here on that bolt. I might need the short extension actually. Undo. Need that long of an extension on this. 29 years old and I'm falling apart. Beat my body up. Alright, here we go. Just watch your fingers, guys, because when you use these air ratchets, they have a lot of kickback on them when they do actually snug down and tighten. Once again, these do not tighten. These are designed, they do work like a click wrench, but I don't use them that way, or a click socket wrench. I don't use them that way because I don't want to wear out the mechanisms in them, because these are more expensive to replace than a socket wrench. So use a socket wrench to do the job of a socket wrench. Use these just to spin them down. Like I said, these air tools, they're here to give you assistance. You know, they're not always the actual final task, or what should I say, the final once over. The final once over, I always go back with the actual tools and breaker bars to tighten things down, and torque wrenches. These are just to assist you in spinning things down, so you're not using all your, you know, arm muscles to do that and tiring you out quicker. Yeah, see that? Clipped my arm in between the strut there and the knuckle. So these things are just got so much power. So just watch your fingers. not too bad. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and use the bigger socket wrench here. This is to help make sure these things are snugged down, because these are, once again, these are the brakes. Happy with that. Like I said, you're not He-Man, but you definitely want to get them tight, because you don't lose your brakes. It would suck if your caliper wasn't tightened down. You'll know it, because it'll make all kind of noise. As soon as you hit the brake, if one of those bolts come out, the caliper will bounce up and hit the wheel. I've actually had a car, we were getting a front end noise from, could not figure out where the hell it was coming from. It only occurred when you're backing up and stopping. Here, the guys had done some work on the frame on it. They replaced something on it. I think they replaced the frame bushings on it. The subframe bushings, where it connects the subframe to the actual body of the car, the unibody. And when they were working on it, they, for whatever reason, never put the one caliper bolt back in. You gotta be kidding me. So I think we got lucky. I don't think this brake line's leaking. Here, I'm just checking it out. It's covered in something, but it doesn't look like brake fluid. I don't know what the hell it is. That's axle, or that's the grease coming out of. That's nice. That's the grease splashing up that's coming out of the. Yeah, the brake line up here looked like it was all wet, but it's actually fine. It's the grease coming out of the CB boot. So eventually it means we'll be replacing that. So once again, check your work. You know, I always check the tie rods and ball joints under here, which they seem fine. Everything else looks good. Nothing's, brake line's straight like it should be. All the wires are out of the axle way, clipped in, hooked up. I mean, like I said, I'm pretty much happy with that. So I'm gonna hit that one more time with the impact gun, the axle nut. I just like to be safe, guys. It's just a paranoia. All right, so it's the old bearing, as you can tell. Yeah, that's the sensor that's bad on it. I forget what the name of this is. There's a name to this ring that you see here with teeth all over it. That's the part that spins inside there, and every time it passes over the magnet that's inside here, it sends a pulse, which tells the computer how fast it's going. But I'm glad I replaced this one, because it was definitely bad. It's awfully loose. So, all right, time to put the wheel back on. Let me get all my crap out of the way here. Try to clean up my tools here. Old bearings don't have a core or anything like that, so they can just go in the garbage. If you know anybody that collects I don't know, like metal and stuff, or likes to collect, another word I'm looking for, I like to collect scrap metal. That's the word I'm looking for, scrap metal. Sure, they might be able to use those wheel bearings if they disassemble them. Just gonna put the wheel back on. Everything's tight and good. I'm just about wrapped up, guys. This has probably been one of the most successful YouTube videos I've done as far as car repairs. Once again, all we did on here was replace the need a 19 on this. Wheel hub assembly on a 2,000 gram Prix. Very similar to a lot of the other applications. I believe the Aleros and Grand Ams use the same bearing, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty certain they do. Same concept. They use the same bearing on a lot of applications. Just makes it easier for production. That way you're not producing 20 different types of part numbers for one lineup of General Motors, even though they might have different symbols on the front. Let's face it, guys, these are all the same. This Grand Prix is basically, I think, considered an Impala and a Buick and whatnot. They're all pretty much the same thing. So let me crack this on there real quick with the impact. Alright, now I'm going to torque these down here. See what you guys are seeing here. Yeah, you're seeing what I need you to see. Good. Alright, first things first, I'm going to let it down on the ground because I'm comfortable with how tight that is. So I'm going to take the jack stand out and go ahead and carefully let it down. Probably is going to drop quick because these jacks don't work real good. They're great SUV jacks, but they have a tendency of getting stuck. Ooh. Now, I'm doing this in gravel, guys. Don't do as I do, I should say. I shouldn't really jack up cars in gravel, especially with this type of jack, because it needs to be able to slide when it jacks. Now, I have this set on, well, I have this set on 104 foot-pounds. I believe this is supposed to be 100 on these General Motors, but I'm going to use a crisscross pattern to tighten these. Once again, we're not He-Man here, we're just snugging these down. So, basically, go till it clicks. Or I go a little bit past it, just to make sure. I double check everything, safety. That does it. You just witnessed a wheel bearing front left wheel bearing, same part on both sides, on a 2000 Pontiac Grand Prix. It's actually the same on both sides. I already did this one over here. This one's already done. And I'm going to wrap this up because this video is getting pretty long. So, this is the old wheel bearings right here. So, this one here stayed intact. Like I said, these are supposed to feel like jelly. This thing here, spinning very free. They were definitely both bad. This one for sure. The passenger one was definitely bad. The driver one was probably going because it's starting to make noise. And that ABS ring sensor completely fell apart, taking it off. So that should do it, guys. Took me about 56 minutes. I mean, that doesn't include taking the wheel off, but taking the wheel off, you know, is common sense. And, you know, took me about 56 minutes. You'll need a, to do this, you'll need a, you recommended a torque wrench. Torque everything according to the specs. You can look those specs up usually online or in some type of Haynes repair manual for the wheel bearing. I just do it according to what feels tight and what isn't going to break something, because these are made out of almost like a type of aluminum alloy, the bearings, so you don't want to crack them when you over tighten the bolts. You have those 3 back hold down bolts. Those are 13mm. The caliper bracket that holds the whole caliper with the bracket assembly that holds it to the knuckle, those are 15mm. Usually it's good to have a breaker bar, a small breaker bar. 12 inches what I have. I have bigger ones, but that's good enough for this job. Impact tools do help. They speed up the process. I like having this rubber mallet. That's to help pound the axle out right there. And of course it's nice to also have this mini sledge. That helps get the bearing off the vehicle, because usually they're rusted on there. And like I said, a tube of this anti-seize is good. It's good to have. This is good for doing tune-ups too. You put this around your spark plugs, keeps them from getting stuck in there. And a 36mm impact socket to take off the axle nuts. But that's it. All we got to do now is put those decorative plastic caps on right there over the lug nuts. Those are just hand tightened. You put them inside the socket, the 19mm socket, just hand tighten them. And there she does, guys. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.